welcome back, everyone, to a brand new season of Paperboy Ventures. We have a really fun one to kick off season 2 here as we welcome on Jesse Koenig for a conversation to chat all things French fries and better for you fast food. Jesse is the co-founder and CEO of Jesse and Ben's, the Washington, D.C. based brand, which recently launched its first line of branded products, restaurant quality fries made with beef tallow and avocado oil. So, Jesse, thank you for coming on and welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm honored to be episode 1 of the new season. We're excited to see all the awesome brands you guys curate, and bring out there, and very excited to be part of the lineup and to share a little bit more about what we're doing.
Amazing. So thank you for joining. And we'll get into your background throughout the conversation, but just something I touched on the intro. I can actually say restaurant quality with some truth to it because you do have a restaurant in Washington, D.C. Called Swizzler. So we'll get to that and a little bit more on the story behind the brand. But before we go any further, would love if you could just, in your own words, tell us the elevator pitch at a high level. What are you doing at Jesse and Ben's?
Yeah, I mean, you honestly did a pretty good job of it in the intro, and that we are making better for you French fries. Everyone loves fries, and we're trying to give you the absolute best version of a restaurant quality fry you can make at home. And one of the ways we're better and different, we're using really high quality ingredients like non-GMO potatoes, and most notably, we use way higher quality oils. So we're using avocado oil or grass-fed beef tallow, so no seed oils, processed conventional oils used by most of the big guys. And we focus on just trying to make great awesome French fries for you and your family, so you can have that restaurant quality experience at home and not feel guilty when you're serving your kids the things they want to eat.
Amazing, well put. So we'll get to kind of the build up on what brought you here to this point, but let's throw it back. I know you've been in the food space for over a decade now, so would love to hear how this whole idea got started and transformed from the jump. So love if you could fill us in on the journey.
Yeah, of course. And you teed it up that we've got restaurants. I'll have to give that story of kind of how we got into the food business. But Ben and I, from Jesse and Ben, so it makes it easy to remember. We met in college. We were friends. We were going to go kind of the traditional 9-to-5 white collar jobs, maybe into finance or consulting. And we sort of had friends going down that route, and no one was particularly excited about their day to day. And it just prompted us to ask the question of like, what else can we do to solve a problem, or like what else is out there? And it led us to starting this food business on our campus when we were in college, probably like 12 years ago at this point. And that just opened the door to learn so much about the food industry. And we learned about the fast casual movement that was growing a ton. It wasn't brand new, but this is when brands like Sweetgreen and Pizza and Cava were just growing, from the one first region into multiple regions, raising money. We learned about the food truck movement, and it just led us to kind of like go and decide like we want to go try something in this space and learn it and see if there's an opportunity to go kind of do something different and unique. And we launched a food truck right after we graduated college. So we were 21, 22-year-olds driving around Washington, D.C., which is a very competitive food truck market at the time, building this gourmet hot dog brand. And it was like grass-fed beef, gourmet hot dogs, and hand-cut fries, and just kind of figuring it out one day at a time. And none of us had a culinary background. It was really about taking things from a first principles perspective and asking a million questions. I'm sure we annoyed tons of chefs and people we met along the way with all of our questions. And we would read books like The Omnivore's Dilemma and watch, Food Inc. documentaries, and just started questioning why things are the way they are in the food industry, because a lot of people's answers would just be like, oh, it's the way it's always is, or this is what everybody uses. And we just started questioning a lot of those assumptions. So we built our first brand. So maybe like 3 years in, we built a pretty successful mobile catering food truck business in DC. And we just had this moment of like, all right, this has been fun, but if we want to do the food industry, like this is a very hard way. There's easier ways to make money. We got to make sure this is something we're excited about, both from a business model perspective and also from an impact perspective. And what we realized, like we nailed the nostalgia and kind of like better junk food and mystery meat. We learned so much about the meat supply chain at the time, especially. And we realized that just like doing hot dogs is kind of a weird place to be playing, just because it's sort of like people eat 2 hot dogs a year normally at a baseball game and at a backyard barbecue. So we decided to pivot the business into more of this fast food world. So we wanted to be really innovating in like one of the biggest, most competitive spaces, which is like traditional QSR fast food. We wanted to be, showing people that McDonald's and Wendy's and Burger King weren't the only way to do it. We could use, regenerative grass-fed beef, which we'd been learning about at the time. We can use locally baked buns. We can use our own fries. We can really do a way better job and show people there's like an opportunity to scale and grow in this fast food world and still be affordable and accessible to tons of people. So we like iterated, tested a farmer's market, still all the stuff, pivoted our business. 2019 came around, we had a ton of momentum. We signed our first lease for our first burger restaurant. And of course, we were building that out and supposed to open in May 2020 when, the whole world, especially in DC, shut down. So we're building a restaurant in March. Everything kind of goes to zero with our food truck business that catered to offices and universities, with our restaurant that we're supposed to open soon and don't really know what we're going to do there. So we were really forced to just kind of do whatever we could, hustle, and try to find a way to survive, just to kind of like tie a bow on the Swizzler story, and get back to kind of how this got into the fry world. We basically had just had 18 months of grinding it out and doing whatever we could. Today, we still have that brick and mortar location we opened during COVID. It's right next to Nats Ballpark in Washington, D.C. For those of you that might cross over into the restaurant world a bit, it's like $1,200 a square foot. For those of you who don't, it's doing well. It's great. It's an awesome place. If you're in DC, come check it out. Make awesome burgers and fried chicken sandwiches and fries. And then we're also in stadiums. We've got like 6 concession stands at 3 major sports venues in DC. So learned a lot about just the back end of restaurants doing all this stuff. Rewinding in our story a little bit, how we got into the fry world is we'd always made our hand cut fries. And during COVID hitting and the world shutting down, labor was really tough. There was all these restrictions. We were trying to figure out anything we could streamline to survive. And our French fries had been like the one thing carried from our first food truck concept through to this restaurant openings. We couldn't change them. We need to be as good or better. But we started saying, like, if we could just get a frozen fry and we're not hand cutting fries at 3 different places around the city, that would really help us out on labor costs. It would really make things more consistent. Tried all the frozen fries. They were all horrible. So we decided, like, all right, we've got this food truck kitchen that's not really doing much right now. Let's go figure out how to make French fries. We turned it into a little mini French fry factory, made our own house cut style fries that we'd ship to ourselves across town and use at our food trucks. They were awesome, started getting rave reviews. They were even better than our hand cut fries we'd sort of been cult famous for in DC in our food trucks. And it just kind of led us to like thinking about what's been going on with frozen potatoes. We walked the grocery store aisles at some point during that time and just saw all the same brands from the 90s when we were kids and realized like this is that sea of sameness we heard about when we were learning about challenger brands, listening to podcasts and doing all this stuff as we did our food truck life. And just realized like, okay, there's something here, and decided to test it out, launched this like brand off of Canva that was just kind of testing the idea for maybe having a premium French fry. Got it into a local distributor on the East Coast called Rainforest Distribution. They were super excited about it. Pulled us into 3 regions, got 180 accounts in the first 6 months, ended up getting into Sprouts Farmers Market, Fresh Time, some of the big distributors, got in our first Whole Food stores, almost 500 stores total, and just realized like, holy crap, like this has been a side project that we barely spent any energy and time on, and we made all the mistakes. Like, what would happen if this was our whole focus? So we just went back to the drawing board and really thought about this sort of like 2 different businesses we had in front of us, with like a restaurant that's finally working and things are going well, this frozen French fry business that has so much potential and could grow really fast. And what we decided was like, all right, we need to pick one. We can't do 2 things to the level of like excellence that we want to. So we figured out a way to just like get our restaurant set up so it's running with a great general manager and a team locally where it's sort of just on autopilot, and decided we wanted to go all in on our fry brand, which has now become Jesse and Ben. So we sort of spun it out of our restaurant business, and so it was sort of this like weird thing that was thrown in there as a test. Went out, raised a little bit of capital, which we're just in the tail end of that fundraising round now, which I'm sure we'll talk about. And just this year we launched. So we launched into retail in June of 2024. We're in about 250 almost stores, I'd say, at this point, including Whole Foods in the Mid-Atlantic and Mom's Organic Market, which has been awesome. And then one other awesome side of our business that's very unique, I think, in the CPG world is that we have a very interesting opportunity in the food service side of selling to restaurants, because at the end of the day, the main reason we got into frozen fries is we were solving a problem for our restaurant. And as we started thinking through the opportunities in this business, we realized that could be a really big lever for us to, get economies of scale, really get to be excellent at what we're doing and do our own manufacturing, and then use that as a way that we continue to grow the business while being really strategic and like kind of sniper focused on the retail side and really just going for the right retailers. So it's been a lot of fun. We had a thing we put onto a spreadsheet and hope for the best, this time last year. And now it's actually coming to life, and it's been a really exciting journey. So we're very much, pumped to just keep going, keep getting this in front of people, and keep getting all the great rave reviews and taking this to be a household name all over the country.
Yeah, it's a great story, and I like how you put it of solving your own problem. And I think that that's kind of uh, it's key for a lot of CPG businesses when somebody is trying to create something that they truly feel doesn't exist in the market, and then you can extrapolate that out and find the people that are like you, and get in with them, and there's your scale. So it's a fascinating journey from the early food truck days to the catering to the COVID restaurant opening story. Just really crazy. When did you make the call to go all in full time on the fries? Was there one moment, or was it just like a culmination of what you dealt with through COVID? What did that look like?
It was probably right around like this time last year, in June or July last year. We like had a lot of this data, and we were trying to figure out like weighing the different pros and cons. We started talking to trusted advisors, people in the food industry, and just realizing like we knew we were going to need capital to really go about this the right way. Like, what's it going to take? And started kind of putting together a rough business plan of like what it would take to really do this the right way on the fry side of things. And we actually went through this exploratory process the same way we did the deep dive on grass-fed, grass-finished beef back in the day in 2014. We did the same thing on fries. That's where we started learning about seed oils and seeing this huge undercurrent and movement towards people wanting less processed ingredients, less of these conventional oils in their food. And I think that was a really big signal to us. There was a huge opportunity and this like wave that, having a better burger shop's great, but that opportunity honestly could be here 20 years from now still, just by being, really great at what you do. This seed oil thing is brand new, and we want to be people that are like not just half-assing it like some of the big companies might do it as like the greenwashing and marketing side of it. We wanted to create a product that was generally serving these customers who were like screaming from the rooftops they had this problem. So we saw that opportunity and started learning about it. And I think right around kind of like August or September, we sort of made that decision of like, okay, we're going to go all in, start doing some of the groundwork to get the restaurant to make sure it was running and not going to be a headache or any sort of distraction, starting to put together the materials to fundraise, getting initial feedback on some of our stuff. So it was probably like ultimately October or November where I was really kind of full time in the fundraising mode and starting to get the word out and start this process. And Ben was still like putting some final tweaks on the restaurant side of things and doing R&D. So yeah, it was roughly this time last year. And then the business sort of started in earnest January of this year, launched our first couple of food service accounts in March or April, and then just got into retail in June. So still very early on, but the traction's been amazing. And we've been in the food industry for a long time. We've built a lot of brands, we've tweaked, we've iterated. This is the first time we've actually understood what it feels like to feel pull from the market, where people are going out of their way to like DM us, thanking us for what we're doing on social media, or like sharing stuff and like really going, like saying, I need this in Texas or in Florida or in California. So I think it's just been really amazing that like we had this kind of theory around there being a need for what we're doing and trying to create the best product for that customer. And now we're actually seeing it play out in real time and starting to really hone in on those like blocking and tackling skills of CPG to make sure we can serve those customers while still doing all the stuff we need to do to run a great business.
Yeah, and it's interesting how you bring up the better for you movement really across all CPG, and it seems to hit different categories at different times. And I'm not sure why it's taken so long in like the I don't know, maybe it's because consumers don't care when they're eating like junk food. But would love your take on why has this taken so long in this segment?
So I think, in my opinion, I mean, we looked at this for a while, but open to other people's ideas. I think there is maybe a misconception around some of that stuff, around like, oh, like frozen doesn't need to be healthy. I think honestly, a lot of the customers who would be shopping for the convenience of the frozen aisle have been lost because all the ingredients are so bad. I mean, I feel like the potato chip aisle is such a good, just like mirror to what's going to be potentially available in the frozen potato set, where you see the Boulder Canyons, you see the Siete Foods, you see all these people going into avocado oil and better oils. You see Masa selling beef tallow chips direct to consumer and building a monster business online. I think there's like a big wave for junk food that people want the craveability and the experience and the nostalgia of these foods, but they don't want to sacrifice how they feel after the fact. And I think just the frozen potato set in particular is like a very interesting landscape, mostly because of just how it operates today. It's very similar to like the General Mills, Unilever, Procter and Gamble sort of like owning the entire processed food market. The potato world is very similar. There's like 3 or 4 companies that own the entire industry. and they don't own all the supply of potatoes, but they own most of the manufacturing for frozen French fries. So it's not easy for someone who has a great idea of like, wouldn't it be cool if there was a beef tallow fry or an avocado oil fry? If you're not willing to get your hands dirty, at least in the early days, to do your own manufacturing, you can't start the business we've started, which I think is like, on one hand, really challenging. On the other, it's a really big opportunity because if you do it, you have this moat. Not that I think other people should be doing this stuff. I want more products to go this way. It's just what we've learned about this industry is like it's not easy to be a new brand here. And for the big guys, they have absolutely no incentive to improve the quality of their product. They have an effective like oligopoly or monopoly across the industry, but they all have sort of this truce, it seems, between them to do the same thing and the same level of quality. And what we've seen in other parts of the food industry generally is I think until there's a brand doing 20, 30, 50, 80, 100 million in sales, they're not going to do what they need to like change over their lines at their factories that produce 1,000,000 pounds of potatoes a day. Or so it's like there's a lot of cost when you're a publicly traded company that makes frozen potatoes. You don't want to acknowledge this new innovative thing that could be the next big thing. You're just going to go try to buy it if something shows up that you have to compete with later. So we feel like there's a really interesting opportunity for us to be, really entering sort of this big open green space and be creating something for the customers that, are clearly demanding a better quality product for them and their family.
Yeah. Um, well put. And would love to talk about the product itself now. So, a couple interesting things there. The oils that you use, the simplicity in the ingredient profile, and also the self manufacturing. So, just super intriguing. So, if you could just talk us through the product itself and how you manufacture it, would love to hear how that comes together.
Yeah, I'll start with the oils because I think that's like one of the main, very clear differences of what we're doing. So it's a great place to start. One is beef tallow. Like grass-fed beef tallow is what we use. So our tallow and sea salt SKU, it's our most popular SKU. Whole Foods all over the place mostly. It's potatoes, non-GMO russet potatoes, grass-fed beef tallow, and sea salt. So just three ingredients. And what's really interesting about this, if people don't know much about it, it's we're cooking in beef fat. And that might sound weird, but it's actually the way this was done for a very long time. McDonald's, for example, they've been around since like the 40s or 50s. They used beef fat for their fries at McDonald's. They're famous for from 1950 until 1990. It wasn't until 1990 that they changed to more conventional seed oils. And there's a whole story there. And I think, as you may guess, like a lot of money and a lot of other things going on. It wasn't because they
Wow.
tasted bad. They actually still use two ingredients. They use like a dairy and grain additive to their fries today to make it taste like they were cooked in beef tallow, even though they're not. So clearly, it's like a good way to make a French fry. Belgium, where they make amazing French fries, they've always used beef tallow. So I think that's really innovative. There's tons of research out where there's sort of like a swinging back towards from like, oh, cholesterol is going to kill you and give everybody a heart attack, back towards people realizing like actually there's a lot of micronutrients and interesting stuff, and there's not oxidation happening when you have these healthy saturated fats like a beef fat. So flavor's amazing. Functionally, it's amazing. There's definitely lots of people that have like kind of like taken this red pill. I always forget if it's red pill or blue pill. Who've taken this pill,
Black pill.
black pill, whatever it is. They've taken it and they've realized like, holy shit, animal-based products like beef tallow and ghee, they're actually way better than these conventional oils, and they taste better. I think that's what we get excited about when it comes to this category of seed oil free. It's like, unlike a lot of other parts of the grocery store where there's been these changes, it actually tastes better and is better for you when you switch to something like avocado oil or grass-fed beef tallow, which is not the same thing necessarily for like gluten-free or
Right.
some of the other larger waves that have hit in the last little while.
Yeah,
So
you have to win on product, and
yeah,
taste is always number one in consumer. So the fact that you hit on it's actually better for you and it tastes better kind of puts you right in the sweet spot, and that is unbelievable about McDonald's. I didn't know that they used beef tallow to cook their fries for the first 40 years of their
yeah,
business.
we started seeing that kind of like meme going around. It's like it's a really funny thing 'cause it's so tangible because like everybody's eating McDonald's, and it's like when you actually think about it, it's also like it goes back to I think why this trend is so insight or interesting right now too. It's like our parents or like people that are older, like, well, I used to eat this food in the 70s, and like look at me, I'm healthy. It's like we're not eating the same food at McDonald's in 2020, 24 than we are in 1970. Like all these things have changed. So much of the food has gotten worse and more processed and more terrible for people. So it's like a lot of this isn't rocket science. It's going back to basics, which I guess is a good segue to your other question. We also use avocado oil, which is great. I think people understand avocado oil, so we don't have to go too much into it.
I did have a question for you on
Yeah.
that, because so you have three flavors right now,
Yes.
right? I noticed you used the beef tallow on one of them, and then you
Yeah.
used the avocado oil, I think, on the other
On the other
two.
two, yeah.
What's like? Why are you using tallow on one, what avo on the other? Like, what's the thought there?
So we've learned a lot about this stuff from running restaurants and food trucks. Like we want to let customers decide with their dollars before we really double down on things. We also know that there's plenty of people that eat French fries who are vegetarian or vegan, so we knew we wanted to have an option for them. And honestly, tallow is a bit of a risk. Like we're the first and only brand in the frozen potato section of the grocery store anywhere in any product that uses beef tallow. The only people that really do tallow right now are potato chips, and it's primarily pure to skincare. It's a really big company that's growing. Masa chips and Rosie's potato chips, like they do it mostly D2C. No one's doing tallow, so we didn't know how customers were going to react. We knew there's like an obsessed core customer online of people that care about it, but I didn't know what's going to happen in Wynwood, New Jersey when you put it on the shelf there. But it's been our top seller at Whole Foods right now, which is pretty cool to see. Avocado oil in our mind was a safe bet because it was already proven out in the potato chip aisle in a lot of ways, and we've learned a lot about it. It tastes great. People just like, I think, avocados in general, so it's like an easy thing, and it's really neutral in flavor, which is great. So it's not going to like add some weird flavor like coconut oil might, or olive oil might. So we did a lot of testing. We landed at like avocado oil is a great base fry. Tallow is kind of like our kind of like gamble, where it could be like the number one SKU, or it could be a little bit weird. But we've learned it's actually been great, and it's my favorite is the tallow, but the avocado oil SKUs are awesome. To answer your question too, like we have a classic sea salt with avocado oil, just potatoes, avocado oil, and sea salt. We have a rosemary garlic fry in avocado oil. The only two additional ingredients are rosemary and garlic powder, so it's 5 ingredients total. No fillers, no weird stuff. And the grass-fed beef tallow is tallow and sea salt SKU is just potatoes, tallow, and salt. So if you look at any other fry in the grocery store, they're going to use dextrose, they're going to use sodium pyrophosphate, they're going to use all this weird stuff. We don't do any of that. So the question you had is like, what's different about our process? We make our own fries in our facility. And what's great about that is we control that process. And what we're doing is very much a true to form hand cut style fry, a Belgian style twice fried fries, maybe like a more technical way to explain it. If any people have been to restaurants like a French bistro, for example, you have a really good fry that tastes like it was made in house. Generally, that's what they're doing. They're taking the potatoes, they're soaking them in water or blanching them, they're frying them once, they're cooling them down, and they're frying them again. So for our fries that are going into retail, into grocery, we are basically replicating that same process, just doing a lot more volume than a restaurant might. So we're taking potatoes, we're cutting them ourselves, we're blanching them, we are then doing one fry at a lower temperature in that oil, and then we're seasoning it, freezing it, giving it to you to bring to home, and then you can throw it in the oven or air fryer and have it ready to go, and it tastes like this awesome, delicious French fry. And then for our restaurants, obviously, if we're selling to a restaurant, they typically are going to be deep frying them at the end of the day. So, it's the same process we use at our own restaurant still. Like Swizzler actually just won Reader's Choice Best French Fries in Washington, D.C. a few weeks ago with this big Reader's poll. Thank you. And it's literally using almost essentially the exact same recipe we're using for the retail fries. When we say restaurant quality fries, truly it's a restaurant quality fry. We're just trying to make it convenient and easy. So when you're at home, you can give your kids, or your family or yourself or your partner or whatever, a really awesome French fry right out of the oven or air fryer.
Gotcha. In the production, or I guess the manufacturing, finishing the product, that's happening in DC as well, or in the area?
We're actually just moving to a new facility in Rockville very soon because we've been not necessarily outgrowing, like we could make it work for a while, but we're seeing a lot of growth and a lot of the signals that we've sort of been planning for. And my business partner, Ben, does kind of our like back of house, like operations side of our business. And we have a really awesome like internal phase manufacturing plan. So for us, we've got solid gross margin right now, even at this like most inefficient part of our business we're ever going to be at. And we have pretty key milestones mapped out so we can make investments in these big pieces of equipment as our volume's going up, and just kind of like continue to chop people out of the operation or scale up our volume without having to add more people. So what's nice about like what we're doing, we're not really having to like invent some piece of equipment. We've just developed our own process using a lot of existing equipment that works in some of these big factories. So we're moving into a new facility, which is going to get us up to be able to do like $8-10 million in sales off a very minimal investment, which is great. And even most of those investments are pieces of equipment we can move to a new facility if we needed to. So we're excited to basically just like keep building out this first phase of like proof of concept. Do people want this product? So retailers want it, customers want it to move off the shelf, and we're seeing that. So we're kind of getting ready for that next phase of like, how do we get some of these efficiencies? How do we show this gross margin? How do we become a national brand? And I think at that point, we'll be looking to raise some other capital to get into a bigger manufacturing facility and really kind of grow and be going for that big growth spurt and be kind of a grown-up company in the $50-80 million range where we might start having to compete toe-to-toe with some of these big potato guys, which would be fun.
Yeah, and great segue to transition into what you're seeing in the market today. So you're about a year in to being all in on the brand. So from you mentioned some of the stores you've launched into, and you kind of have two sides of your business. You've got the side that supplies restaurants directly, and then you have the branded side, which sits inside grocery stores.
Yeah.
So I guess you can start with either one. It would be great to hear about both. But how has business been?
Yeah, so generally, just to kind of lay it out, because I know some people get a little thrown off because if you're in CPG, you don't think too much about food service, but it's very similar to like private label, right? And I think a lot of investors are starting to see the value there. For us, the main benefits, like we see the strategy is like building a household name, Jesse and Ben's, turning junk food into joy food, giving people these great experiences, minimal ingredients. That's what we're trying to build. One of our key tactics, though, is that this food service side of our business helps us get economies of scale, helps us to be net cash flow positive faster, and to invest a lot of that cash into growing our team, building that foundation, and being able to build a business that's not constantly going to be on the hamster wheel raising money. Because we've learned a lot from COVID and what we've done. Like we feel like we can build a business that's cash flow positive, profitable, building a team. And when we do need capital, it's going to be for like a big investment in going national with Whole Foods or getting a bigger facility open that's going to allow us to really grow our sales. So in the meantime, this is sort of like the engine that's allowing us to be in control of our own destiny, which we really like. But the food service side, since I already started there, it's one of our main focuses for like year one going into like halfway through year two is building this solid base of food service accounts. So trying to get to be like a $3, $4, $5 million food service business. And what's great is like a case study for you all is that Swizzler, for example, it's like 1,800 square foot restaurant. We serve a lot of French fries. We love our fries, but like we're not doing crazy numbers like a New York City Shake Shack or any sort of like Chick-fil-A. So pretty busy restaurant, nothing crazy. We buy like 50 cases of fries a week. And at 50 cases of fries a week, that's roughly a $120,000 customer for Jesse and Ben's. So what's interesting is like you get a 5-unit chain of Swizzlers, that's like a $700,000 customer. And then that's not necessarily the norm, but it's not crazy for a fast casual burger or fried chicken concept to be selling that amount of fries.
And you're talking annually, that 120K?
Annually, yes. Yeah. So it's like,
okay. So you're basically looking at acquire one restaurant in that vicinity and you're north of 6 figures, and then you can scale that up.
Exactly. So the idea is like if we want to be a $4 million food service business to like be our base, we need like the kind of high volume Swizzlers. And there's also opportunities in like country clubs, hotels, fine dining restaurants, where maybe they have 4 sides they offer, but like French fries come with a lot of stuff. And instead of 50 cases of fries, that one might have 25 cases of fries a week. So it's let's call it a $50,000 customer annually per unit. So we need, essentially 100 low volume customers to get to be a $5 million food service business, which gets us to be cash flow positive and all the things we were talking about of kind of the tactics that help us grow our brand. And we currently actually have like a 30-unit restaurant chain in Baltimore that we work with. We brought them on in June. Been going awesome. They're actually looking to bring us into more locations of theirs. There's a 5-unit chain up in New York we're getting onboarded with. We are, getting set up with a lot of local DC places, Swizzler, obviously. So we're kind of on track and have proven that there is like a good case study for that. And we're really trying to just like get that distribution open and deal with some of the paperwork, kind of painful things about food service. But we're learning a lot and really dialing in processes around that stuff. So that's going well. It's kind of like we had a thesis of what we could do. We weren't sure. With the benefit of anyone listening to this call is like instead of it being in a deck saying we're going to do this, like we've actually proven it out and start doing it. On the retail side, we had to get our packaging right. We had to do all this stuff, but we had the benefit of having launched a test brand in fries and building a lot of relationships with distributors like Rainforest Distribution, with buyers and category managers. So we had a bit of a running start coming into launching this new business. And one of our key launch partners has been Whole Foods, which is awesome. So we went not through like a regional buyer, but actually through the category manager of global. And they put us into the Mid-Atlantic region into about 30, 35 Whole Foods, which just launched like August 15th or 20th. It's pretty recent. Mom's Organic Market, if people know them, they're kind of a leader in the Mid-Atlantic. They do an awesome job, really great store, awesome curated selection. We just launched with them in August as well. And then outside of those kind of like two bigger guys, we're also in a bunch of indie accounts and small chains through Rainforest. So we're in the DC metro area, the New York metro area, and the Boston metro area. And sort of like the, what's the word I'm looking for here, New England-ish area. So like West Side Market, we're in a couple of those in New York. We're DeChico's, like a well-known chain up in kind of Long Island. And then just like a bunch of infra, NCG accounts, kind of indie accounts. So it's been great because I think we've been learning a lot about the different types of accounts where we do well. We've been really focusing our time and energy on like making sure we can learn as much as possible and build our playbook in the Mid-Atlantic. Like, what do we need to do to drive trial? Because we know when we drive trial, people are excited and they're telling their friends. So it's just starting to really learn the blocking and tackling. And we've like, while we're focused on the Mid-Atlantic, because it gives us that layer of security that like I can go drive to a store if I want to see what's going on there, which is great. We've also been really thoughtful around how do we build a marketing playbook that can scale. So we're working with, tech forward things like Aisle, if people know that, to do like digital couponing and digital demos and working with influencers. So we're trying to build something so that when we hopefully crush the next 30 days, which we're on track to do, and we could go national with Whole Foods, which would be awesome. That's sort of the plan if we can make it happen. That we have a playbook and something that's worked in one region that we can now replicate and scale in other parts of the country. So, we're really trying to be thoughtful. I know this is not like completely a confidential recording, so I will say that there's just like some other large, bigger players that are in the Northeast specifically in different parts of the country that we're talking to about launches. One I can talk about is Thrive Market. We're launching in Q1 of next year online, which is really great for us because we want to go heavy on influencer and social media and spreading the word. So it's nice that if you're in Arkansas or California or Texas, if we're not in a retailer near you, you can still order our product, which, it's always painful to tell people no when they're trying to buy 20 bags and sending us emails to our website about it. But shipping frozen with dry ice is not fun, as many people in the frozen world know. And then I'm trying to think of any other retailers I could talk about.
Yeah, I mean, no, that you listed a ton, and congrats on the.
Oh, Fresh Time is one other one. Sorry.
Fresh Time. Yep.
Yes, we're launching their 70 accounts pretty soon, and then there's a couple other stores that are like we're really excited about. One in particular that's like in the Northeast that is sort of like in this premium conventional space where it's not quite a natural grocer, but it's also not a commodity sort of like grocery store that you'd expect to see all the normal brands at. So we're hoping that we'll get lunch with them in the next month or two, which we feel like would be a really awesome way to learn not just what's working in the natural set, but also see what's working more in this conventional world too.
Right, because you're a French fry brand. You're going to be in every store in the country eventually.
Yeah, and we built this brand to really be appealing to the mass market, and that's one of the fun things about French fries. Like Midwestern moms are going to be just as excited about French fries as someone in like a coastal city. So we're really excited about that. For us, like we're trying to find the right balance on maintaining the premiumness of our brand, but also driving value to the customer. And I think that's why we want to find a good test case in the Northeast nearby where we can learn a lot and find that like, does this, current pack size that we're doing and this current price point work? Or do we need to figure out, the 24-ounce family pack that has a little bit more value for the customer before launching into more of the conventional set? But again, it kind of goes back to like one of the benefits of having our own manufacturing is that we can control our own destiny there. We don't have big minimum order quantities to go try something new. Like we can test it. We can keep building those real relationships with category managers and like find the right partner to test one of these things out. And it's been a really great journey so far. And like, I think the big benefit we have being in a space where there's been no innovation is that the category managers get it from day one. Like we don't use any brokers right now. We don't have anybody selling us into these places. I've been able to reach out to folks on LinkedIn or, to reach out to them via email or through their normal category review process. And we've had a very high success rate of at least getting samples to people and starting the conversation. So, we feel like what we're really trying to figure out right now is like that playbook to move off the shelf and drive velocity and make sure the product is dialed in. And we're getting very close to that right now. And then, the next phase is obviously how do we then take that to a national level and start playing all over the country, not just in our backyard.
Yeah. one thing getting on the shelf, it's an entirely separate beast getting off of it and getting the pull through.
Yeah, and that's what we
But
love about food service, right? Is like it's only one sale because like you're already selling fries, so it's like you
right,
can find a Swizzler, burger shop. It's got 5 locations. If I talk to the chef or the director of procurement or whatever, and we do a tasting, they love the product, and we get it set up with their distributor, which sometimes is painful. 2 months later, they're now pulling your fries, and you've got a customer that you don't have to do any other work other than make sure the product is consistent and great. And luckily, Ben and our manufacturing team are all stars, and they do such a great job of making sure we have a consistent product. So it makes my life easy on the sales side. That's just getting in front of the people, doing a tasting, talking to them, not trying to sell too hard because we genuinely feel like we're solving a problem for the restaurants that are looking for this hand cut fry or the consumers looking for a healthy-ish version of a product that's not typically a healthy thing like a French fry.
yeah, and look, there's always going to be a large swath of the U.S. population that doesn't care
Yeah,
about being healthy when they're eating junk food. But I think it's continues to grow every year, even more pronounced since COVID. We see consumers just taking more importance on their daily health and wellness all the time. So
yeah,
I think you've got this groundswell building on the consumer side. You're approaching it on the B2B side, and it's kind of like a perfect storm from what I see. So nicely done.
thanks.
Congrats on what you built so far. Really, to close this out, would love to hear what you're thinking for the future. And I know you won't spill all the details, but the people want to know: are grass-fed hot dogs coming back? What's next for Jesse and Ben's after fries?
Yeah, I don't see any hot dogs in our future of Jesse and Ben's. I think we finally have closed the door on that era, although it was a fun one. What's coming next for Jesse and Ben's? I think for us, we've learned the value of focus, and we feel like there's just so much opportunity in this French fry space to be a national player in the kind of grocery stores all over the country. And what we love is that there's already a playbook that's sort of figured out between like start natural, really like own your core audience and make sure that they love you and figure it out for them, and then sort of like roll it out to the rest of the country. And we feel like we can build a brand that is doing 50, 80, 100 million without really going too far outside of our core SKUs. Maybe a different pack size. Maybe we'll get crazy and add like a crinkle cut fry or a shoestring fry or maybe a tater tot, maybe a sweet potato fry if we're really getting out there. But like we don't need to do a ton. I think ultimately Jesse and Ben's has the potential to build this level of trust with consumers around being craveable, junk food, but in a way that's actually using really great ingredients and is trustworthy. And I don't see why that couldn't translate to other parts of the grocery store down the road as well. And I could see that being something that one of these very large food giants that have had successful, times of buying like, a Primal Kitchen and letting them run under their umbrella and continue to grow. I think that could be in our future of finding partners that way. But at the end of the day, we're trying to build a business that we would be really excited to own 30 years from now. And it's something that can grow and scale and add value to people's lives and add, value to our investors and to ourselves, of course, as well. It's not a nonprofit, but we do care about impact and creating genuinely better products. So I think we're just having fun. I think we know the end game. We kind of know what Z looks like. We know what steps kind of A, B, and C generally look like. And we're not trying to get too caught up with what like the rest of the alphabet's going to be after that. We're just trying to keep our heads down, do what we have to do. I guess on that note, and you may have this question up your sleeve, but we're just kind of at the final round of our seed round of raising capital. We've gone out hard to kind of get that first tranche in so we could get onto the shelf and finish our branding and packaging and get out there. So now we're just sort of like tying a bow on that side of our round. It's a safe note, raising up to $1.2 million at a $6.5 million post-money cap. The plan is that can kind of get us to that $6, $7, $8 million run rate, which we think is a great point that we can sort of go out, raise the capital we need to get that next level of manufacturing and really grow the business to something that's super interesting, especially since we do have a bent towards profitability with our food service side of our business as well and having great margins. So that's generally the plan. So, people, please, if you're listening, if you're interested in getting involved, reach out. I think we may not have touched on this call. I just had a kid, so I'm a little off the grid for the next week or so, still checking in here and there. So if I don't get back to you in the next week, usually we're pretty fast at getting back to people, but otherwise we're very excited to bring the right people to the party, have them involved early on, whether it's now or at our next round. Like we're not seeing ourselves going out and raising a ton of capital over and over again. Our goal is to really bring in the right people to close out this round, the right people at the table for our Series A. And then from there, we sort of see like the world's our oyster and we want to be in control of our own destiny, building an amazing brand that can grow all over the country and impact tons of lives. So that's the goal. Anyone that is excited about that as well, we'd love to chat and find ways to work together one way or another.
Thanks, Jesse. I love the long term view that you put on the business. Build something that'll be great in 30 years. The rest of it will take care of itself. And clearly, you've got a really strong lens on what investors today care about. Cash flow, profitability, capital efficiency. Love the business model. You're looking at things, in my perspective, in all the right ways. So,
Yeah, I just up to that point too. I want to say that like we kind of like everything's always luck and skill and being in the right place, but we feel very lucky that we are bringing this business to the market at the time where people are looking at businesses in this way, where they see cash flow and profitability as sexy. I know there was a time 5 or 8 years ago where it was all about burn as much money as possible to build a brand and to just continue to grow. And I think many people have learned that's not necessarily the way to do things, and you can get left holding the bag. So honestly, we just have this bent because we were a little bit scarred during COVID and our different experiences being in the food industry. And we feel like it's the right way to build a business responsibly. And we're excited. This is sort of like in vogue for investors right now. And we're glad to have people at the table who are willing to think creatively and look at us and say, hey, like these guys, maybe they could just do consumer and raise $10 million and just blow it all on branding and marketing to be a national brand. But like, we don't want to take that bet that someone's going to buy us until before we run out of money. We'd much rather build a sustainable, profitable business that like helps restaurants, helps people like solve their problems. We make money off of that, gets into the right grocery stores and grows a business, not necessarily 10x again 1 year, but taking these like 2, 3, 4, 5x jumps and getting into the right retailers. So just wanted to say that like, I'm glad that there's an alignment of where investors are circling right now. And if that is in line with you, I just wanted to make it clear, like, it's not like it's a sales strategy to get people to close out a round. So what we feel is the right thing to do. So if you're an investor who's excited to tell people to keep pouring every dollar you make into marketing and branding and building the brand, we probably aren't the people for you, because we want to build a real business here that can be here 30 years from now. And we feel like we're going to grow, and it's going to be growing pretty quickly. So we don't need to necessarily be foot down on the gas the entire way to make it a sustainable, good outcome for everybody involved.
amazing. Well, thanks again for taking the time to chat. The full details of the fundraise are in the Paperboy newsletter, so subscribe to that if you don't already. But other than that, thanks, Jesse. Really enjoyed the chat and love what you're doing. So keep going, brother.